Their native bees have mouth parts that fit only one species of flower. So that native bee can only be active as an adult when it has to do all this reproductive activity during the few weeks of the year that one plant is flowering. And for us to have these bees, we not only need to have that plant, but we need to provide habitat for it through all the other stages of its life cycle, from the egg to the larva and the pupa, a place for it to pupate. That's not how we usually think about gardening, but we need to start because we're running out of natural areas and for these things to live. And our yards is a place where we have control. We can do whatever we want, so why not? Butterflies get a lot of press, which is good. Please keep in mind there are 15 times as many moth species as there are butterfly species. So the moths do a lot of the pollinating the butterflies get credit for. We don't see them because they mostly operate at night, but they're really important to these systems. And they go through different stages. Here you see a beat up old male. You can tell it's a male because of these two black spots, but its wing is kind of beat up. The other picture is a brand new young one that's just come out of the chrysalids. It's hanging from the chrysalids. It hasn't finished pumping its wings up yet. It hasn't flown yet. Before it's a chrysalis, it's caterpillar. And there's two major things about caterpillars I'd like to mention. One, they are mostly very host specific. We know about monarchs can only eat milkweeds, fritillaries can only eat violets. They need plants that they co-evolved with. So although I don't think you have to be a purist about using only native plants, you're only going to feed caterpillars with things they co-evolved with. They can't get a bite out of a Norway maple or a ginkgo tree or anything that came from a different continent. And the other thing is that they're the primary food source for baby birds. Most of our songbirds feed their babies almost nothing but caterpillars. And it takes a lot. Chickadee weighs 1/3 of an ounce. A pair of chickadees are going to build a nest, probably lay 6 or 7 eggs, and from the day they hatch until the day they leave the nest is about 16, 17 days, and they're going to need to catch thousands of caterpillars. Thousands. They can't be going down the block. You know, they don't have that kind of time. They are hard workers. And so you need these plants right there where they're nesting in order for, and that's a chickadee. Think about a cardinal or a blue jay. They're all hunting caterpillars. That's what they do, all through the breeding season. These are not my pictures. These are Doug Tallamy's pictures. Doug Tallamy, if you're new to this is where you start. You have to read Doug Tallamy's books. He popularized this idea starting about 15 years ago when he published Bringing Nature Home. And that's the start. The other thing about this sugar that gets produced is that 1/3 of it goes in the ground. It comes out through the root tips as drops of sugar water that the microbes trade. They eat that sugar water, and in exchange, they bring in nutrients and water to the roots. Without that, soil doesn't happen. And actually, when they digest the sugar water, what they produce is plant growth hormones that are then taken up by the plant and stimulates growth. And they have all these, our native plants have, especially the prairie plants, have all these different shaped root systems. And every winter, when the top of the plant dies back, all the fibrous parts, not the long woody parts, but the fibrous parts of these roots die back also, leaving all that organic matter in the ground, which makes it sponge-like so that stormwater can travel through the ground instead of on top of it. Here you see turf grass. We've used turf grass and hard surfaces to teach water to run on top of the ground. It should be running through the ground. And this organic matter that's in the soil is all carbon-based. So this is carbon sequestration at its best. That's what our grasslands, our great grasslands of the world used to do. They don't anymore because they've been plowed up. Because what's been found is that that carbon stays in the ground as long as you leave the ground alone. But when you disturb the soil, the carbon comes back out into the oxygen, which is where we really don't want it, for a lot of good reasons. Okay? So that's kind of the background, the basic principles behind ecological landscaping as I see it. Let's talk about weeds and other unwanted plants. Because there are a lot of things that will grow up in your garden that don't classify as weeds. They're classified as things that people go to the store and pay for, but they come into your garden, maybe not in the right way. But they get going from seed. So what do seeds need? Okay? Seeds need open ground. They need contact with the soil. They need sunlight. If they're buried 1/4 of an inch deep, they're not going to germinate. They're going to stay there. So that's another reason not to disturb the ground, because you're going to get less weeds and other unwanted plants. And they need some moisture. We have traditional ways of preventing seeds from finding open space like this. Like, I had a job one time where we spent day after day putting down plastic, pushing wheelbarrow loads of gravel, putting it down. And what happens is you get weeds growing on top of that plastic, because there's this misconception that soil grows plants. It's the other way around. Plants grow soil. So these plants get growing on top of the plastic, they build soil there, and then you've got a horrible mess. Even the wood chip mulch, which is very popular, whether you like the red or not, the wood chip mulch, you see all those helicopters, the maple leaves? A lot of those are going to germinate anyway. Somebody's going to have to deal with that. Plus, that soil gets crusted over, or that mulch gets crusted over. And when it gets crusted over, it inhibits the flow of gases, the exchange between the atmosphere and the soil, and the soil goes sour. So in the landscape industry, they do a thing called cultivating the mulch, which my friend Roy Diblett likes to call fluffing up the mulch. And it works, and landscapers love it because in the middle of the summer, when their mowing pressure is down, they can send their crews out to fluff up the mulch, and it creates billable hours, and everybody's happy, right? But it's better to cover the ground with plants. When a garden is young, you might have to use some kind of mulch, and I advocate using leaves. Leaves are the most wonderful soil additive there is. They fall from the sky every fall. This was purchased composted leaves, but you don't have to use composted leaves. In the fall, when my neighbors put their leaves on the street for the city to come, I go get them, and dump them in my driveway, and mow them up. It makes great mulch. You can store them somewhere where they'll compost, or you can put them right on your garden. Wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. But the leaves that fall in your yard, especially in your garden beds, leave them alone, because they're full of treasures. This is a comma, this little thing that looks like a bad Photoshop on it. That little C, that's how you know that's a comma butterfly. They overwinter in the leaf litter as adult butterflies, just waiting for the trees to leaf out so they can fly up and lay their eggs. Those eggs will hatch into the caterpillars that feed the first generation of baby birds. And it's not just commons, it's all kinds of stuff. Doug Talmy sent me this. It's a Luna moth. And that's the cocoon of the Luna moth. It spends the winter in the leaf litter. These things, a rake, a blower, a mower, anything you do to disturb the leaves, you're killing things. There's all kinds of bees in there that are pupating, spending the winter, beetles, all kinds of things. Leave the leaves alone, please. You can use leaves that are being thrown out anyway. All that stuff is doomed. So use the resource. Use the resource. But it's better to just use plants. Okay? The problem with native plants is you get a lot of situations like this where you just got too much. That used to be a beautiful garden, and it's gotten where it's not anymore. And how do you know when to pull the plug on a plant, you know? And what really helps is community. Communicating with other native gardeners who've been here, done that, and can tell you what to do. And there are good organizations around for how to network with other people. A national organization that has chapters in a lot of different places. I don't know where y'all live, but Wild Ones has chapters all over the place. Great resource. Here in McHenry County, the Land Conservancy has a Conservation at Home program where knowledgeable people will come to your house and consult with you on making decisions about your landscape. And we also have the Wildflower Preservation and Propagation Committee, which actually has a mentoring program. If anybody's interested in starting their first native garden, they'll hook you up with an experienced gardener to do that and to help you do that. And within that organization, we also have the Helping Hands Committee, where we go around and consult with people. And here we're talking to this lovely lady in the blue shirt who's pointing out to us, it seems like I have too much of this yellow stuff here. You think maybe I should get rid of it? And this is what we do in the Helping Hands Committee. We say, yes ma'am, that's it, you got it. She lives there, she knows. Nobody's ever given her permission to remove perfectly good plants from her garden. But you have to do it, sometimes. But better to prevent it. This is a garden that I used to get paid, theoretically, get paid to maintain. The problem was, I would go there on my route once every 2 weeks, and I would take my helper and get out of the truck, and we would walk around and say, there's nothing to do here. And the reason there was nothing to do is if you look, underneath, it's pretty because it has the big blotches of stuff. It's a technical term, blotches. But you see the ground, you hardly see any bare ground. It's all covered with ground covers that are active early in the season, because the weeds generate, most of our weeds are cool season agricultural weeds. They germinate in April, May. If you've got the ground covered right away, they don't have a place to germinate. This idea is explained beautifully in this book, which Doug Tallamy calls the Universal How-To Guide to Sustainable Landscaping. And it really is, because these people are scholars, and they have what that last lady, her landscape, what she knew intuitively and she was doing in her landscape, she never had language for it. These people have put language to that stuff, so it's really great to use. Great, thank you. It's really great to you read this book, and they advocate designing and planting in layers, where your structural layer is things like trees, large shrubs, any kind of tchotchke, statuary, a gazebo. Your house is even part of the structural layer of your garden. Anything that has size to it, that gives architecture to what's going on here. And then you come in underneath that, and you lay in swaths and drifts of color for different parts of the season. Things that make a big, bold impression. Because people have to be able to look at your landscape. A lot of native landscapes, they're really messy looking. And people see them and they say, I don't want that at my house. And, there's a part of us going way back where when we look at a landscape and we don't understand it, we think maybe a saber-tooth tiger is going to step out of there and eat us. You don't want to scare your neighbors with your landscape. Even if they don't know they're scared, they don't like looking at it. So you need swaths and drifts of big, bold color and repeating elements, like in these landscapes. Even in this one, which is pretty wild looking, but the repeating yellow and the repeating pink elements helps to give it a cohesiveness to where it kind of makes more sense. But then the magic is down here on the ground cover layer, where that other one, she wasn't necessarily using natives, but you plant these cool season native ground covers. So this is the part people came here to find out about. What are they? What are they? You have to start with the sedges. Sedges are so critical, but you have to be careful with sedges. You need to talk to somebody who has successfully used the sedge before you pick one. It's like hunting mushrooms. You know, you don't read a book and then go out and say, oh, that looks like the picture in the book, and eat it. You might die. It's the same thing with sedges. You won't die, but your garden might get really ugly if you use the wrong ones. But sedges are essential to our ecosystems because this time of year when the ground can be so saturated, and it's going to be a month to allow these trees leaf out. With all that water in the ground, the tree roots will start to die and rot, except that the sedges are most active right now, and they're pumping water out of the ground, drying the soil out to provide for everything else. And then in the summer, they go completely dormant. But every night, they act as dew collectors, collecting dew and watering stuff. I have a friend who uses this in permaculture, and she waters less, where she plants sedges with her food crops. It really works. It's the way the system was set up here before we got here. This is pen sedge, which is a wonderful one. It's mat forming. It does turn brown in the heat of the summer, which can be good or bad, you know, but it's something you should know before you use it. I like the look in my garden when the pen sedges turn brown. Some others, I'm just going to give you a few. The Jamesii is very much like the pen sedge in that it's mat forming and it's very short, but it doesn't turn brown in the summer, it stays green. These others are all albicans, ebernia, and rosea are all clump forming. They're just nice little clumps and they have fine foliage, so they're tidy. Yes?
So the sedge, is that the one with the little flower? It looks like a little white flower.
Yeah. This picture was taken in April, and yeah, they bloom this time of year, really early. They don't spread by seed that much. The pen sedge doesn't. They seed mostly vegetatively. They just keep creeping and creeping and creeping. Okay, so that sedge is just, you know, these are a few that I know are good. There are other good ones, but talk to somebody before you pick a sedge. Don't listen to somebody who saw a YouTube video and said, oh, use this. Yes, ma'am.
Are they all full sun?
No, there are sedges for every situation. Yeah. Okay, here we have pussy toes for a hot, dry, brutal place. Bloom in May, cover the ground. And I just a week ago learned about a different species, the plantain-leafed pussy toe, which can take more moisture and more shade, and it's a more tolerant one. And you'll see a picture of it later on. So that's a good one. They really cover the ground. Over here, the purple poppy mallow, also called wine cups. In the spring, this time of year, these are little rosettes, maybe 6 to 12 inches across. So you got that much area where you have no weeds. And nothing's going to come up through that rosette. But then later, as the season goes on, they stand up, and you can see what they do. They really put on a show. They're beautiful. This is Monarda. This one is actually an eastern Monarda, originally found by John Bartram, the father of American horticulture in upstate New York. So it's not the one that's native here, but look how it covers ground. Very densely. That picture is in April. There's no weeds going to come up through that. Our Monarda fistulosa, which is called wild bergamot, has a pink flower, has this exact same growth habit. Covers the ground very densely in April, and then stands up later and puts on a show. This is robin's plantain, a very underutilized plant that covers the ground densely, as you'll see. It stands up here in May and puts on these nice little daisy flowers. But this is a picture in September in Camden Yard, right outside Baltimore Orioles Stadium. A 10-year-old planting. Tens of thousands of people walk by this. You know it gets trampled. It doesn't get maintenance. The straw-looking stuff in there, those are the flower stems from the previous May. Nobody goes in there and cleans it up. Nobody's pulling weeds. There are no weeds in there. All the other plants are dead because they get trampled, and this is tough enough to take it. So this is a really something to mix into your, this is a 10-year-old planting. It wasn't intended to be this way, but because of the pressures of the situation, that's what they've ended up with. But nobody's having to pull weeds in there. This is golden ragwort, which these are second-year plants in May, getting ready to bloom. But this is back in Camden Yard. 10-year-old planting where it has just survived. There's not even a curve there. You know it gets trampled, and it's covering the ground. Our native violets are great. The yellow one there is not Sororia, but that's okay. This is at our house. We have a tiny yard, but on one end, we just went in and planted. I was tired of killing turf grass, so we went in and just planted small trees and shrubs, native stuff, shaded out the turf grass. The violets took over. Creeping Charlie came in too, but it's since gotten shaded out. It's not there anymore. And just beautiful. In May, you'll notice there's a random chunk of wood standing out there. I urge you to leave random chunks of wood, whether you arrange them artistically or whatever, because they're habitat for all kinds of things. This one year actually had a chickadee nest in it, right outside our bedroom window. We could look out the window and watch them come and go.
Nice.
But they also provide pupating places for, this is a sphinx moth, I believe, place for pupa of moths and beetles, both, and bees. And a lot of our native bees utilize rotting wood, so I encourage you to leave wood in your garden. This is our native ginger, which for a shadier place, you see how well that covers the ground. And this is wild strawberry. Wild strawberry in our zip codes here supports over 60 different species of caterpillars. Why not? Plant this stuff everywhere.
Wow.
Oh yeah, there's that. Yeah, plant this stuff everywhere. You get these, they're tiny, they're so delicious, little fruit. I highly recommend this plant. Don't confuse this with what they call the mock strawberry, which a lot of Barrington area, more high-end old landscapes, I've seen this used as a ground cover. It's considered an invasive species. It has a yellow flower, not white, and the fruit, you saw the strawberry, the fruit was dangling down, the fruit dangled up. They're completely tasteless. I've tried them. Not terrible. And they're not terrible, they're just tasteless. And yeah, so it's not the mock strawberry, our native wild strawberry. This is Allegheny spurge, which is native farther east than here, but this is our native pachysandra. Who knew there was a native pachysandra? But here it is in midsummer. Look at that foliage. It is just a gorgeous plant that is very underutilized. You need that one?
Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, very underutilized. And here it is a week and a half ago. It's not real pretty yet, but the ground is covered. No weeds are going to come up in there. So, and it won't take very long and that'll green up and be beautiful. But this is my favorite one.
Prairie smoke.
Prairie smoke. The vegetation just grows a few inches tall and then the flowers stand up. This was probably taken in April or May. I don't use the word favorite very often, but I was just walking out to get in my car to go somewhere and said, whoa, got to take that picture. Yeah, that's when the seed heads are unfurling. Here it is in June. when the seed heads are all out. It is just such a gorgeous plant. And here in the right-hand picture, this is July, after it's dropped most of its seed, and it actually, within a couple weeks after I took this picture, it had gotten ugly because there were all the old flower stems standing up. It had been beautiful for 4 months solid. And then I crawled through there and cleaned up all those stems. But you see how it creates separation between these bigger plants to where you can actually see them. In a lot of our native gardens, yeah, you see how like here, you know, these are bigger plants that are going to continue to grow, and it creates that separation. A lot of our native gardens, they just look like a mishmash. And the only way people know how to prevent that mishmash is to put wood chip mulch in between everything. And we don't want to do that. So plants like this work great for creating definition in your landscape. Yeah, and everywhere in here, I've talked about bad sedges. I use palm sedge, which is too tall, too aggressive, and too crazy looking. And everywhere where you see red through here is a place that used to be palm sedge. And finally one year I went through and dug it all out. It was a pain, and learned about this method a month later and went in and started, out of existing clumps of prairie smoke that I had, dividing out of them and planting around. Didn't have to go to the store, didn't have to buy anything. I had a few clumps that had been given to me by somebody else. They had grown, had some size to them. Yeah, look at that. It's a never-ending show. And then they're green the rest of the year. Oh, and those swaths between the plants, for the rest of the summer, that's where I walk. When I work in the garden, those are my paths. I don't have to step. It can take a little bit. You don't want to take a whole class of second graders through there on a regular basis. But, you know, you can walk on them a little bit. Enough that, you know, I try not to go out in my garden all that much. And with this method, I don't have to all that much. Okay, there are other plants that have spring rosettes that cover the ground, and anything that blooms fairly early in the season is going to be covering ground fairly early in the season. This is our native alum root, my favorite heuchera. They bloom more beautifully than any heuchera cultivar I've ever seen. The cultivars are all for fancy colors, and when you have fancy colors in a plant, those fancy colors are concentrations of chemicals that caterpillars cannot eat. So the fancy color, the things like the black lace elderberry, you know, the blooms are still good, they still provide for pollinators, but anything that eats elderberry can't eat the black lace elderberry. The Diablo 9 bark, those things with the dark colors, they're inedible. So this is the straight species. It's wonderful. This is our native geranium. Because they grow so early in the season, they get ground covered early. So think about that in your composition. And this is a planting that you see the heuchera, the alum root with the yellow flowers. But the grass in between is prairie dropseed. And here's that same place in April where the prairie dropseed foliage is covering the ground. Don't remove it. It's mulch. It's there. Leave it alone. The good Lord did it for you. You know, just leave it. But that big blob in the center, that's a heuchera. And it's got a rosette about this big. And it's there right now. This picture was taken in April. It's there right now. It's covering ground. And even here, this is a penstemon. Down in and it has a little rosette as soon as the snow comes off in the spring. So incorporate, yes ma'am?
When do the penstemon, I planted some last year, when do they
start coming back to life
It
really?
should pretty soon.
Okay,
Yeah, pretty soon. This is a weird
yeah.
winter. A weird spring. Because when we had cold weather, we didn't have snow. So the ground really got frozen and things are really slow. This is Queen of the Prairie, which blooms in the middle of the summer. But here it is in April, and this is pen sedge that's creeping through it. That's not going to interfere. They coexist just fine. And when the pen sedge gets crept all through there, it'll be bulletproof. There'll be no way weeds can get started in there.
Can you go back, please?
Sure.
Just look.
Yeah.
Beautiful, thanks.
And this is an eastern bee balm. In April, June, and October. Covers the ground all year round. I mean, it's just green. Right now, it looks good. It's covering the ground.
So that stays very short compared to...
Stays pretty short. Yeah. Full bloom, it's probably that tall. Yeah. And you can mix these. And think of your composition like a Persian rug, where from a distance you see the big bold patterns that make it look like you did something on purpose. But as you get closer and closer and closer, you can see all the fine little details. Because your eye enjoys detail up close, but from a distance, it's kind of scary looking. So, because these are small and they're close to the ground, you can mix them together, and you get all these delightful combinations when you look at it up close. And this, a friend of mine sent me this. This is that plantain-leafed, the white flowers, the plantain-leafed pussy toads. And when you have these things mixed so close together, then you get all these different shaped root systems in the ground doing all this good stuff at different depths in the soil column. So it just works better, makes your soil much better. 2 more plants. We're getting there, folks. This is a plant that prevents weeds not by covering ground, but by being a weed. This is spotted bee balm, which is a native plant. Only place I've ever seen it growing wild was on a sandbar in the middle of the Wisconsin River. It's disturbance. It requires disturbance. It produces a lot of seed. I've had enough of it growing in my yard that it's in the seed bank. And when there's a disturbance in the yard, there's a good chance this is what will come up. Black-eyed Susans are the same way. Short-lived plant, it only lives 2 or 3 years. So there's a disturbance, I remove something, a bunch of stuff comes up. I go in, I find this, I weed out everything else, and then it grows up, it's beautiful for 2 or 3 years, and then it dies. And it goes away without me disturbing the soil again. Meanwhile, other things are growing in and occupying that space. It is a magnet for pollinators. That wasp all over the back of it is pollen. Wonderful, and the best winter interest in our garden. It's beautiful all winter long. And another one that doesn't cover the ground at all, but for your early season garden, you have to plant shooting stars. They're just gorgeous. They don't cover ground at all, but they're fantastic. And they'll seed around, and you'll get more of them. But let them grow. So, oh yeah, there we go. Fancy name. So this is our yard midsummer last year. It's coming. It's been a process because we've made mistakes. We've had to remove a lot of things, but it's getting there. You don't see the ground covers except for a couple of places. Here's a little prairie smoke poking out right there. There's a little, that's a heuchera there. No, that's something else. Yeah, you don't even see them at this point. It's all filled in, but they're fine underneath there. They're not really actively growing at this time of year. They're just sitting there, and they've done their job. They're waiting for next spring. But it's been a fair amount of work to get it to this place. but I'm of the opinion that it's really good work. It's really enjoyable and satisfying to see this happen. Wendell Berry stated it this way: "The care of the earth is our most ancient and most worthy, and after all, our most pleasing responsibility. To cherish what remains of it and to foster its renewal is our only legitimate hope." I agree with most of that completely. Only legitimate hope? I'm a little iffy on. I think there are other legitimate hopes. One of them that I hope y'all will take every opportunity to support is lemonade stands. You know, if you don't believe in these guys, what is it you believe in? You know, I mean, this is the future. When you see the first job I ever had in landscaping in Illinois, that was the first thing my boss taught me. We were driving down the road. Ken, always stop at lemonade stands. And I took it to heart and do it still. So thank you. Do we have questions? Yes.
What about a bird? You know, I have a native area
Uh-huh.
with a lot of grasses, and the grasses out suffocate everything else. And once in a while we burn it.
Uh-huh.
What does that do? You know, maybe we shouldn't, but what does that do to the creatures and stuff?
You know, you don't want to burn everything every year. You want to leave, you know, people who burn for a living, you know, do it on a pattern to where they'll have areas that get burned. And yeah, when a fire goes through there, you're going to kill a lot of stuff, a lot of invertebrates. And that's just the way it is. But our ecosystems are adapted to that. So you want to have places you don't burn. There are a lot of things that, you know, I didn't talk about leaving stems standing in the garden. A lot of bees, native bees and beetles use stems to nest in. Doug Talamy advocates cutting those stems because they get ugly. And he advocates cutting them off and taking them somewhere, leaving them standing up, and the bees will find them. I don't know, but yeah, burning is something you want to, you know, and I'm not totally up on this, but there's something about the 50 degrees. A lot of the eggs and stuff on your grasses, skippers, which are kind of between moths and butterflies, they really lay a lot of eggs on grasses. And I'm seeing more and more mentioned in the literature, I haven't really dove into it yet, that at 50 degrees a lot of that stuff hatches. So then it can burrow down in and stuff can do really well. You'd be surprised that a fire will go over and stuff that's down in the plant debris will make it through.
So then, how do you maintain the flowers versus the grasses? Because,
Yours gets to be too much grass. Yeah,
and,
well,
you know, and then it just floats, you know, to the next bed, to the next bed, to the next.
yeah,
And then all of a sudden I have all the grasses.
right. Well, it's just like the picture I showed you with all of the yellow flowers. You know, you have to edit. You have to make decisions. You know, I have too much of this. I have to take stuff out. Everywhere you take stuff out, replace it with cool season ground covers. Because if you have those cool season ground covers growing there, then you're not going to get that soil contact and sunlight on the seeds, and you're not. And it'll. That's one thing that I didn't really understand. You know, I've been practicing this method for about 4 years now, and as time goes on, I realized that the way that it locks in your composition. I've always embraced, you know, I call volunteer plants the secret sauce. You know, I mean, it's just, there's no telling what will be, you know, you can always remove them, but they might come up in a place that you never imagined. And they still might, but, you know, I embrace that less because my garden's in the front yard. I want it to be pretty. And if I just let anything come up, it's not gonna be. So by using the cool season ground covers, you really kind of lock in your composition, and it cuts down, way down on your work and enhances the beauty. Yes.
Do you have a source for where to get some of these seasoned?
Yeah, you know, it's funny, we're in,
Yeah.
the WPPC has a plant sale, the Land Conservancy has a plant sale, the Wild Ones chapters have plant sales, Lake County has a plant sale every year. They are selling out. Like, they opened a week ago and they're almost sold out. It's just amazing. Possibility Place, which is down in Monee, they will mail you plants. Yeah, possibility plants, and you want to plant small. You don't want to buy, you know, there's no reason to dig a hole and put a gallon pot in there. You want to plant plugs. Yes.
Prairie Nursery in Weston, Wisconsin has a mail order.
Yes. Prairie Nursery and Prairie Moon, I believe mail orders also. I'm not sure, but those are good ones. Yes.
What would you suggest for vegetable gardens to try and be natural?
We have started experimenting in our garden, not weeding out the violets, and it's interesting. There are people who know a lot more about that than me, but if you start looking for that information on that, there are. I know Elaine Ingham has gotten into that big time, using ground covers with food crops. And if you Google restorative agriculture, you'll find information in that realm.
Plant them in the rows in between?
Yeah, yeah. And in we grow sparkle strawberries, which is a cultivar that are really delicious. And they grow everywhere in our garden. And we're always weeding them out, giving them away, and making room for to plant the plants. Yes?
I've got a native woodland area,
Uh-huh.
mostly native, and I've got a lot of the wild geraniums.
Uh-huh.
And I find that towards the end of the summer, that's where I'm having issue with the weeds, even though, I mean,
Really?
it's pretty much almost a mat of the wild geraniums in the spring. Any suggestions for other things that I can plant also to get more diversity?
Sedges.
So just, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, our woodlands, you know, pen sedge in particular. You know, I don't know if you know who, Harold Wilhelm, he wrote Flora of the Chicagoland area. He's, you know, one of the preeminent naturalists for our region. He calls Carex pennsylvanica the keystone species of the oak savanna.
I've got wild geraniums, big apples, a little bit of marigolds, some Solomon seal.
Uh-huh. Yeah, sedges for sure. And find other species too, but pen sedge is a great place to start. Yes, sir.
You talked about mulching leaves.
Uh-huh.
Oak leaves.
No problem. I know.
Did the high acid, the tannic?
You know, back in Independence, Kansas, there was a guy in our garden club who was a retired Bell Labs engineer. And when he had a question like that, he would do a controlled study on it. And he took walnut hulls and aged walnut hulls, fresh walnut hulls, mulched with them. Everybody told him, no, that'll kill everything. No, that stuff breaks down the soil really fast. Yeah, tannins are not a problem. Use leaves. Yep, thank you. Mm-hmm. Yes?
Yeah, I moved here from West Virginia, so I'm new at the, so what is the attitude towards Creeping Charlie?
Well, I guess that answer.
Here's your answer. I think everybody gets the same answer.
Yeah, my attitude on Creeping Charlie is if there's any way to keep it out of your landscape. That lady with the yellow flowers, I was at somebody else's house weeding Creeping Charlie with her, and she'd never seen it before. It's never found its way into any of her beds. If you can keep it out of your garden, do. And if somebody gives you a plant and they have Creeping Charlie, don't put that plant in the ground for 6 months. You know, leave it in the pot and make sure it doesn't have any creeping Charlie growing in it. Because if you can live without it, then do. Once you have it, you got to find a way to make your peace with it. I mean, you're not going to win. There's no sense picking fights that you're going to lose. And creeping Charlie is just so persistent. If it's growing up over something, yeah, you know, get rid of it. But, you know, try to outcompete it with other ground covers. But I thought I could keep it out of mine, and I failed. And I used to, you know, every spring I would crawl through and, oh, I got it all this year. It's not good. No.
One more question.
It's very nutritional.
I have a bunch of maple trees
It
and
starts eating it.
It's a member of the family.
Yeah, it was actually creeping Charlie was used as a bittering agent in beer before they discovered hops. At least that's what they say.
People spread the rumor that it's really tasty.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of maple trees, like certain years they get this black kind of mold or something on them.
On the leaves,
And the leaves, is it dangerous?
doesn't hurt a thing.
Oh, okay, 'cause
Yeah.
I thought you had to burn them or something.
No, black spot. Most of your disease things, you know, they're cosmetic. They don't really hurt anything. There are situations, but no, the black spot that you see on maple leaves is no problem. Except it'll hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
Yes.
My big concern is, you know, when you go through, Grays Lake has a place called Prairie Crossing, and their yards
It's
are
ugly.
all. Pardon?
It's ugly, isn't it?
I like it, but my concern is, I love the look of all the, of taking the place of grass, turf,
Uh-huh.
and replacing it with all this stuff, but I'm wondering about critters, like living in there, like, in the city, you might get rats or whatever, but like out here, like voles and shrews and mice and all, I mean,
Yeah.
is that a thing? I mean, I guess,
I'm,
Well, I
does it,
would say that you're affecting owls and.
Yeah.
oh, yeah, that's
Things
true,
they
yeah,
like to eat.
yes,
yeah, I mean, that's life,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know? I mean, you know, we see a fox every day.
yes, yes.
You know, and that's what they
Yep,
specialize
yeah,
in.
you're right, you're right. I didn't-
I don't know how much he's hunting in our yard. It's fun when we have just a little bit of snow where you can, you know, track him around, watch out, active. Boy, he's really active. Yeah. Yes.
You mentioned about the prairie coreopsis in the spring to like just leave the dead matter lying there. So,
That was a prairie drop seed.
oh, sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Sorry, not, yeah.
Mhm.
Drop seed, so the grass type things or
Uh-huh.
like, so I have some of those and some sedges. So does the new growth come up when you don't cut away
yeah.
the old stuff?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I don't have to cut away the dead stuff.
No, not at all. You don't have to, you know, I mean, if you've got any seed heads sticking up, you know, you might break those off. If you prairie drop seed in particular, if you burn it, it'll put on new growths faster because that black will soak up sun better. So, but you don't have to do anything to them. I used to go in there with a weed whacker and, you know, kind of, I would leave everything there, but I would cut it loose and leave it there. And I was talking to somebody who worked at Lurie Garden and said, yeah, you have to be real careful because you'll get into the crown of it with that weed whacker. She said, why do you bother? I said, oh yeah, thank you. So much, everything I was taught growing up, you know, I've discarded almost everything. It's all, so many of our traditional practices just make work for you. And if you'll just work with the plants, with their natural way of living, and their natural way of living is to feed insects. So focus on that and leave the stuff there. Yes?
When do you divide your prairie smoke?
I have generally done it in the fall, but you could do it right now.
Okay.
Yeah, you could do it right now. Yes?
On that drop seed, I get them, and every year the mounds just kept higher higher and higher and higher, and then it's almost like they're out of the ground. Do you push them down, or should you put dirt around them? Or?
No.
Because I lost some.
And they don't live. There's this perception that perennial means forever.
Yeah.
It's not true. You know, there are, black-eyed Susans, which are considered a perennial. They live for 2 or 3 years. Purple coneflower lives for 5 or 6 years.
They just reseed, and so you think they're always there.
They reseed, so you think they're always there. And I'm not sure what the life cycle on prairie dropseed is, but I bet it's not 50 years. Eventually they're gonna die, but you get babies. You don't get a lot, but I always have, when I work in my yard, I'm always finding little baby prairie dropseeds that I can put somewhere else. Yes?
So if you're like a woodland area, if I'm trying to remove like mustard garlic, best to dig it up and then try to put something else in that area, or just cut it down so it doesn't get the seed heads?
Yeah, all of the above. I heard somebody who knows what she's talking about the other day, talk about just cutting them off, as soon as they start to bloom. I'd always been told that if you don't get the roots out of the ground, they'll bloom again the next year. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure what is the best approach, but getting other plants growing in that space ultimately is the best. When you get the carpet of first year seedlings, little tiny seedlings, just a solid carpet, propane torch. We'll just wipe them out. But the second year plants, because it's a biennial, it lives 2 years. But I understand that it'll live longer than 2 years if it doesn't get an opportunity to make seed. And, but yeah, I have taken a propane torch to those second year plants and they didn't care at all. It was, okay.
So I do leave leaves and all that, and I do leave stems, like for,
Great.
like I say, leave the stems, I still have stems, of course I have the new growth starting to come up. What is the best time to maybe cut a stem, and I keep the stems out for
Yeah.
neighbors behind us, so I don't really, and I know you keep the little insects inside the stems.
Right, and one of the things I didn't realize for a long time is a lot of times they don't use those stems until they're 2 or 3 years old. Which is why Talamy advocates taking those stems and putting them somewhere where they'll stay standing up. And really, this is not something that I'm totally on top of. Anything you can find by Heather Holm, she's on Instagram. She has really informative stuff. Bees Native Plants is her handle on Instagram. But Heather Holm, Holm, she's from the Milwaukee area, and she writes great stuff. She has several books out, and anything you can find that she's publishing. The Xerces Society, XCS Society is an bunch of insect lovers. Their website, you can find good information. I can't guarantee that I can give you correct information on that. All right. Okay, I guess we're done.